In this Blender movie clip editor tutorial, I will show you how to stabilize and edit a shaky video clip and then render complete with audio. Other tutorials can be found in my playlists. If you're new to Blender, the first thing you'll need to do is remove this banner, so just hit return on your keyboard. And then come up to the top left hand side of the screen and you're looking for the button that says editor type, and it'll say current editor type for this area 3D viewpoint. Left click on this and then make sure you select movie clip editor. You don't want the sequence editor, and this will bring this screen up. Now I'm going to just change something very quickly up here. Okay, well I've just changed this panel. The main reason I've done it is so that you can see some of the shortcuts that I'm using, just to make life a little bit easier. Okay, you've got a few options for bringing videos into the movie clip editor. You can either come up to the top of the screen and left click on open and then navigate your way around your folders or your files where your videos are stored. And if you want to see a thumbnail of your video, just come over to this button here, say display mode, left click on this and then left click on thumbnails, and then select your video and then left click on open clip. That will bring your video into the movie clip editor, or as I prefer to do generally is on a lot of video editors you can actually just drag the clip into the software that you're using. Okay, well the first thing you'll probably find is it'll be too big, so what you can do is you can roll your middle mouse to zoom in and out. And the one thing with later versions of Blender, the view you get is something called filmic, and it can be a bit off color. So for video editing in the movie clip editor, what you'll need to do is come over to this side of the screen and left click on the button that says render properties, and then come down to color management, and again left click on the arrow next to color management, and next to view transform again go into filmic and then select standard. This will bring the view into something that looks like the original. Now another thing, you may need to press N on your keyboard to bring this banner up, so that's N. This won't recognize a few things, so it won't recognize the frame rate or the aspect ratio, and also you probably will need to change the frame range. So what you need to do is come over to the button that looks like a printer. It says output properties and left click on this. So check your aspect ratios. So this one's 1920 by 1080, so these are correct. Also, if you're set at 50%, some older versions were at 50%, just use your left mouse button and drag it up to 100. Don't worry about the aspect ratio. We'll change the frame range in a minute, but you've got something called your frame rate. So this one's telling me it's 25 frames per second, so it's 25 FPS. So again, using your left mouse button, click on the 24 FPS and then change it to the frame rate that matches your video. Finally, Blender as a default always brings in a frame range from 1 to 250, so you'll need to change this. And the easiest way to do that is come up to this tab here. It says set scene frames. If you left click on this, it will change the frame range. So this is now telling me it's frame 1 to frame 348. Whether it's 1 to 10 or 1 to 10,000, this button should work. Okay. Now the next bit you don't have to do, but one of the problems with Blender, well, a lot of video editors, the minute you start using high definition or 4K video, it becomes difficult. I'm going to just drag this up to go through video clips. They lag terrible. So what I'm going to do is place a tick using my left mouse button in the box next to proxy timecode. You need to be in this footage tab here, and then just select the arrow next to proxy timecode, and you've got some options here. This is underneath build quality, so you've got 25%, 50, 75, 100%. I wouldn't bother with. So whichever one you select, so let's say I was going to go 50%, make sure that you deselect, so whichever one you want to deselect, but I'm going to go with 25%, and then come down to the button that says build proxy timecode, and you'll have to wait for this bar down here to finish. Once you've finished rendering your proxy clip, and by the way, this is what basically you're doing is creating a smaller file, a video file, which won't affect the final outcome, but it does make a huge difference when it comes to editing. I'll show you in a minute what kind of difference it makes. Okay, so the only other thing you need to do is use the proxy file. So where it says proxy scale none full render, use your left mouse button and select the one to match your proxy clip. So this is 25%. And now, if you, like I said, you perhaps want to bring this up. In fact, I'll drag it up a bit more. If in this bar here, this timeline here, you've got a few options. You can roll your middle mouse to decrease or increase the size of the view, and you can also hold down your middle mouse and move it from left to right. So now I can really go through this quite quickly. So I want to start here, say, so this is the point I'm going to start stabilizing, and also I'm going to re-render the video at. This is the starting point. This is 164. Now I could manually change it up here, but in movie clip editor, all you need to do is just come to the playback button down here, left click on it, and then select set start frame. So anything from this point or before this point will not render. Let's go forward, so we'll take this up to, I don't know, let's go here, and again back to the playback button, and then select set end frame. So you're now rendering from here, which is about 160 something in this case, to here, nothing more than this bit. Okay, now you can use these buttons here to jump backwards or forwards, or you can hold down shift, and in this case I'm going to use my left arrow button. So shift right arrow takes me that to the right, shift left takes me that way, or you can use these buttons here. Now I'm not going to be too, I'm not going to go into great details about stabilizing a video, because I found over the years if you've got a really bad video it's probably not even worth trying to stabilize it. But I will show you how to just stabilize a clip, and also it's worth learning if you're into Blender. Setting tracking points is another art for VFX and CGI, but I'm not going to go into that side. But what I will do is just stabilize this clip very quickly. So the first thing you're going to have to do is place a tracking point, and what you need to do is come up to the add button here and just left click on it, Now, stabilizing a video, you've got your up and down movement, and also there's an element of rotation. So if you're going to do both location and rotation, you need to think about where you place in your tracking points. So for instance, these two wheel hubs here would be a good place, but something in the distance and a wheel hub, because of the amount of movement, it would start creating distortions, or it could create distortions, because this will move. There'll be a lot more movement between this in relation, say, to this point here. So try and pick something that is in reasonably in a similar sort of plane, if you like, and not behind. So for instance, these here wouldn't be too bad. Even the wheel hubs on this car in the distance, if I could track them, would work okay. Points on the two trees, fine. But what I don't want to do is say track to this hub, the center of this wheel here, and this one on this MG in the background. So anyway, let's place a tracking point. So having selected add, all I need to do now is just left click on a point I want to track. You can roll your middle mouse to zoom in if you want, and again you can hold your middle mouse down to get a better view, and if you press G you can grab this about. So let's go for this point here. So a couple of things as well that you can do. If you come up to next to clip display, click on the little arrow next to it, and then there's a box next to search. Place a tick in this, and what this does, this larger box is the search area that this will track in. So immediately it jumps outside, it'll give up tracking. And as I said before, if you've got a really bad shaky video, chances are it'll never work properly, and you may want to do stabilize it manually, which you can do in Blender as well. But for now I'm not going to change anything, but I will show you how to sort of change the size. If you hold your left mouse button down on the arrow, you can change the size of this tracking point. You can also use this to move it around, so if you had more up and down extremes, you can move this around. And another good point to remember is when you've done changes, if you want to go back to the original setting, if you just hold down Control followed by Z, it will take you back to some of the original settings. Again, this arrow here, you can rotate this around. You can also shape your tracking points. Say if you've got something that's a bit square, you may want to change the shape here. But again, I found you're fighting fire with trackers. They only work to, if you've got a poor quality video, they won't track. So that's taking me back to this point. Okay. So let's see if this will lock onto this here. Come to the left of the screen, and where it says track, there's a little arrow. Select the little arrow by left clicking on it, and next to track you've got 3 buttons. What you want to do is count one in from the right, and this will say track markers, or you can press Control T. And that's tracked nicely. So just remember which button you track with. If you're tracking forward, or you can track backwards, you don't want the one right on the end, you want the next one in, or like I said, you can press Control T. So I'm happy with that. So let's go back to the beginning. This button here, or Shift and left arrow button. and I'm going to just place another tracking point here. Now another thing you can do is, if you select track instead of footage, instead of zooming in, you can actually just press G for grab and move this about. So let's lock it on this black spot up here. You don't need to lock these off now as you used to in the older versions of Blender. And again, I'm going to come to this button here and let's just track that, and that's tracked really quick. So we're good to go. Back up to the top of the screen, let's do clip display, and again left click on the little arrow, and there's a box next to show stable. Click on that. Now if you play a video, you can either use this button here, or you can use your space bar to play and stop videos. So we know we're tracking here. I need to do just one more thing actually, sorry about that. To show your video tracking, you need to come to stabilization and then place a tick in the box next to 2D stabilization, and also place a tick in the rotation box. So with this track here selected, I'm just going to, in the tracks for location, I'm going to left click on the plus sign. I'm going to come over and select this other tracking point, and this time I'll do the same but in the tracks for rotation / scale. And now if I play this, you can see the camera moving and rotating, which means it's stabilizing. You will get a bit of cropping. So that's that bit done. I'm not going to go into manual settings. That's something that can take a bit of time, and for every video it will be different. So all I'm going to do in this instance is just put a tick in next to auto scale, and again I'll press play, and as you can see this is now staying within whether the cameras move into the tracking points. So let's render this video. Come over to the little clock that's on the left hand side. It says editor type timeline. Left click on this and then select compositor. And I'm going to just drag this up. Now you may need to put a tick in this box called use editors, or use nodes, sorry. Now we need to remove this render layer, but you'll need to make sure that you've only got this selected. If you delete now, it will take both of these out. So just left click on the render layers tab and hold your left mouse button down and make sure that it is separate from this one. And then press X on your keyboard. Now left click on add. You can also use Shift A. And next to import, left click on movie clip. Now use your left mouse button to release it. I'm going to zoom in a bit so I've got a bit better view of this. Next to open, there's a clapperboard. It says browse movie clip to be linked. Left click on this and your video should come up highlighted, and just left click on it. And you should get a little thumbnail come up. Come back up to add, and next to distort you're looking for stabilize 2D. Drag your mouse so that it's in between the clip editor and the composite. And again select the clapperboard and the video. place your pointer over the yellow dot next to image. Hold your left mouse button down and drag it so that it connects into the image, the yellow image dot in the stabilized 2D node, and do the same again from 2D to composite. Now, some people use a preview here for you don't need to use it. It will never play unless you've got a very powerful computer, so I wouldn't bother with that. But what I would do, and this is, you can split these screens, but just to make this easy, what I would do is first and foremost just come over to this button here again, go into your timeline, and what we need, because we're going to edit the audio, because right now this will not edit audio, what we need to do is make sure that we start from frame 1. So you've got your 3 boxes here, so it says start and end. If you place your pointer in this box here, left click and type 1 and hit return, what will happen is anything you import into Blender would import from frame 1. So this part wouldn't render, but this highlighted part, or this lighter colored part, will, and anything after won't. So all you need to do now is go into the timeline button, and this time what you want is the video sequencer. I'm going to roll my middle mouse, and you've got an option. You can either click on the add and then go movie, and then navigate to the folder where your movie was stored, and also you can use the browser, and also you can just drag it in from here and close this down. So as I said, this, although this will play from here, no, you won't be able to see it, it won't actually render until this point here, and then it will finish here, but we don't want the video. So what I would do is just click on the blue strip, make sure you've got it selected, then press X and then left click on erase strip. And this is one of the problems with Blender, it can do this, it was erase the whole lot. If this happens, just press Control followed by Z. And like I said, make sure that this is selected. You can check if it's definitely selected by holding your left mouse button down, press X and then left click on delete, and now all we've got is the green audio, and we're almost good to go. Right of the screen, in the output properties box next to TMP, just left click on the folder and decide where you're going to save your video. So we'll go desktop. I've done a couple of test runs on this car already, so we'll call it, I don't know, give it something simple, call it what you want, and then left click on accept, and you've got a box here, file format, it'll say PNG. At present, if I rendered this, it would render a couple of hundred images, which I don't want, so I'm going to left click on PNG and then select FFmpeg video. If you open up the encoding box by selecting the little arrow, you've got different options. So the containers, you've got different formats, QuickTime, AVI, Flash. I'm going to leave it at the default setting. You also got codecs you can change, and again I'm not going to change anything because this will just go on forever, this tutorial. But what I would do, because when you stabilize a video you do crop some of the sides, I would set the output quality from medium quality to high quality. And finally, audio. Make sure the audio tab is open. Button that says no audio, left click and select an audio format, so we'll go AAC, and you're good to go. Top of the screen, render button, left click on this and make sure you select, if you press this now you'll get an image where the marker is, so if you select render image you'll get one image, so you need to left click on render animation and wait for your video to finish rendering. I'll come back to this when it's finished. Once your video's finished rendering, you can close this monitor down and hopefully you should have a stabilized video complete with audio. Hopefully that's helped somebody. Thank you for watching. Cheers.